Welcome to the deep dive. We're going to uncover some pretty fascinating details today, and yeah, some chilling details about the world around us. Today, we're going to Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana. It became really synonymous with a terrifying string of murders, and our sources kind of paint this picture of a seemingly ordinary man leading a really dark double life.
It is a story that raises a lot of questions about how someone can live such a contrasting existence and what led investigators to, this horrifying discovery.
Exactly, and that's where our deep dive begins. So picture this. It's 1996. Investigators are combing through this 18-acre property. It's called Fox Hollow Farm. What they find isn't just evidence. It's like a scene out of a nightmare. Thousands, literally thousands of bone fragments scattered all across the grounds.
Over 10,000, to be precise. And this was the home of Herbert Baumeister. He seemed like a successful thrift store owner, but he was actually a suspected serial killer who preyed on young men. And the sheer volume of bones that were discovered set shockwaves through the community and beyond. Imagine the effort that it took to process that amount of evidence.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? And to make matters worse, this wasn't a simple case of identifying a few missing persons. It quickly became apparent that Baumeister's crimes actually spanned years, and a lot of his victims were likely estranged from their families, or they were living lives that were shrouded in secrecy because of the stigma surrounding their sexual orientation at the time.
And that's a crucial factor that has hampered identification efforts for decades. We're talking about a time when societal attitudes towards homosexuality were so different, and many of these young men may have had reasons to keep their lives private, so it makes it harder to connect the dots even years later.
It adds such a heartbreaking layer to this already grim situation. But amidst the horror, there were some glimmers of hope. Using dental records and some early DNA technology, investigators were able to identify 8 victims by the late 1990s. But then, for reasons that aren't entirely clear, the funding for further DNA testing dried up, and the investigation stalled, and it left these families with agonizing uncertainty.
Yeah, this raises a lot of questions. Was it simply a matter of budget constraints? Were there limitations with the DNA technology that was available at the time? Or did societal biases play a role in the decision to halt further investigation? It's a very complex issue.
Absolutely. But thankfully, this is where the story ends. In a moment of sheer determination, a man named Eric Pranger refused to let the memory of his missing cousin fade. He firmly believed that his cousin Alan Livingston was one of Baumeister's victims, and he just relentlessly contacted authorities and pushed for answers.
And it's here that we really see the impact of individual perseverance. Pranger's commitment to finding the truth caught the attention of the Hamilton County coroner, Jeff Jellison, and he decided to reopen the investigation. This was a major turning point. Jellison wasn't going to just rely on the old methods. He assembled this team of experts from the Indiana State Police, the FBI, and he even brought in specialists in forensic genetic genealogy. It was a relatively new field at the time.
Wow, so it was a massive undertaking. But it sounds like Jellison was determined to use every tool available to identify the remaining victims and bring closure to their families. And this is where things get really interesting. The advancements in DNA technology in the years since the initial investigation were about to play a crucial role.
Remember, back in the 90s, DNA technology was in its infancy. Extracting viable DNA from bone fragments, especially those that had been exposed to the elements for years, was a monumental task. But by 2023, things were different. The techniques for extracting and analyzing degraded DNA had come a long way.
So this new team was equipped with tools that the original investigators could only have dreamed of.
Precisely. They were able to extract DNA from bone fragments that were previously considered unusable, and compare those profiles to DNA samples from potential family members through databases like CODIS. It opened up so many possibilities that were unimaginable a decade or two earlier, and the results were remarkable. After almost a year of this painstaking work, the team announced a major breakthrough. In October of 2023, they had positively identified Alan Livingston as one of Baumeister's victims. It was a moment of, triumph, but also bittersweet relief.
Yeah, I can only imagine the mix of emotions for Alan's family. Decades of wondering, not knowing, and then finally getting that confirmation, but also the sadness of having their fears realized.
Absolutely.
It's a testament to the importance of never giving up hope, and to the power of scientific advancements in solving even the most complex cold cases. But Alan's identification was just the beginning. He's believed to be one of 12 or more victims found at Fox Hollow Farm. What about the others?
Well, that's where the investigation really faces its biggest hurdles. While identifying Alan Livingston was a huge victory, the reality is that many of the remaining bone fragments are severely degraded. They've been exposed to the elements for years, and extracting viable DNA from them is a challenge even with today's technology.
So even with all the advancements in forensic science, there's a chance that some of Baumeister's victims may never be identified.
That's a possibility we have to acknowledge. But it's important to remember that forensic science is constantly evolving. What seems impossible today might become routine tomorrow. New techniques are being developed all the time, and there's always a chance that a breakthrough could change everything.
So it's like a race against time, trying to glean as much information as possible from these fragile remains before they deteriorate further, while simultaneously hoping for new technologies that might unlock the secrets they hold.
Exactly. And it's not just about science either. Public awareness and community involvement are critical too. Investigators really rely on people coming forward with information, no matter how seemingly insignificant. It could be a memory, a photograph, a detail that someone thought was irrelevant at the time. Any piece of the puzzle could be the key to an identification.
It makes you realize how these cases aren't just about scientific analysis. They're about human stories.
Yeah.
About families searching for answers.
Yeah.
And about the collective effort to bring closure and a sense of justice.
It is. And speaking of remembering these victims, there was a beautiful gesture made in Westfield. In August of 2024, a memorial was dedicated to the victims of the Fox Hollow Farm murders. It serves as a place of remembrance and a poignant reminder of the lives lost.
I read about that. And it's not just a static memorial, is it? It's designed with the future in mind.
Right.
The plaque has the names of the 9 identified victims, but it has space for more names to be added as identifications are made.
It's a symbol of hope, of the ongoing search for answers, and a commitment to never forgetting these victims. Each name added to that plaque is a testament to the tireless work of those dedicated to solving this complex and heartbreaking case.
It's incredible to think about the sheer determination driving this investigation, even after all these years. Knowing that some of the bones are too damaged for current DNA technology, what are the realistic chances of ever identifying all of Baumeister's victims? Yeah, it makes you wonder if at some point investigators just have to accept that some mysteries might just remain unsolved.
That's a really difficult question, and one that I think investigators grapple with all the time. It's a balancing act between acknowledging the limitations of current technology, but holding on to hope that, future advancements might provide the answers they're looking for.
So what's the outlook for this case specifically? Is there anything on the horizon that could potentially help identify those remaining victims?
There are a few really promising areas of research. One involves refining the process of extracting DNA from even more degraded samples. Imagine being able to analyze bone fragments that are currently considered too damaged to yield viable DNA.
Great, that would be a game changer.
Absolutely. And then there's the ongoing development of forensic genetic genealogy. It's a relatively new field, but it's already proving to be so valuable in solving cold cases. By comparing DNA profiles to genealogical databases, investigators can potentially identify distant relatives of victims. And that opens up all these new avenues of investigation.
Oh, so even if a victim's immediate family isn't available to provide DNA samples, there's still a chance to find a connection through more distant relatives.
Exactly. It's like casting a wider net and using the power of family trees to uncover connections that might have been impossible to find otherwise.
It's fascinating to think about how technology is constantly evolving and creating new possibilities in criminal investigations. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the science, is it? There's a human element to this that can't be overlooked.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Behind every unidentified bone fragment is a life lived, a story waiting to be told, and a family hoping for answers. It's their hope that fuels these investigations, and it's their need for closure that motivates investigators to keep pushing forward.
It's a reminder that these cases aren't just about solving puzzles. They're about restoring identities, honoring memories, and bringing a sense of peace to families who have endured years of uncertainty and grief.
And that's what makes this case so compelling. It's a testament to the human spirit, the pursuit of justice, and this unwavering belief that even in the darkest of circumstances, the truth can be found.
Well, the deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about. The Fox Hollow Farm murders are a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary life. But it's also a story of hope, of these incredible advancements in science that are helping us solve mysteries that once seemed unsolvable, and of the enduring power of human connection.
Well said. It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, there's always the potential for closure, and there will always be those who dedicate themselves to seeking justice, for those who can no longer speak for themselves.
Well, that's our deep dive into the ongoing investigation at Fox Hollow Farm. It's a story that's both fascinating and heartbreaking. And it's one that continues to unfold as investigators work tirelessly to identify the remaining victims and bring a sense of resolution to their families. We hope this deep dive has given you a glimpse into the complexities of this case and the remarkable efforts being made to uncover the truth, no matter how long it takes.